Welcome, everybody. This is Valerie Saunders for another episode of Val's Vibe. I'm lucky enough today again to have Jim Nabors, president of NAMB. And we've been doing a lot of lobbying, haven't we, Jim?
Yep.
I know you just went to DC last week, and we're
Yes.
going to go to DC next week.
Next week, and then 2 weeks after that.
Okay. All right. Well, they're gonna have you on the frequent flyer program over
There
there.
you go. So, yeah, we have multiple areas that we're pursuing. Number one, of course, is trigger leads. Okay, so, when I started out, the reason I was going was to meet with congressmen and senators about trigger leads and to get their support. But then things always change. Well, the next thing that came up was the Veterans Affairs servicing purchase issues. So all of a sudden that got added in.
What
And
exactly is that for people that I know they call it VASP, but like what exactly is happening? Like what's that program and what are they doing?
It offers support and help to veterans that were delinquent on their VA loans. It was canceled on April 30th. So, just all of a sudden you have 75,000 veterans that might be foreclosed on. So we met on Tuesday with the Democrats from the Veterans Administration Committee, and then Wednesday with the Republicans. It was kind of nice on Tuesday. Besides myself and Jonathan, our lobbyist, we Zoomed in Rick Benacourt, who's chair of our VA subcommittee, our GA chair and co-chairs, Lauren Patterson and Marvin Hudson, Mike Farrow, who's not only on the board, but also veteran, to be able to participate and talk to them about what their issues are and what their problems with, any proposals or any possible fixes that could come of that. So we did that on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, when we went just across the hall, we met with Chase from the Republicans, and it was kind of nice. He's got a balcony, and we sat out on the balcony and we talked about it. And that morning, they had just marked up, the HR 1815, which is, the VA Home Mortgage Program Reform Act. And basically, it stopped those 75,000 people, veterans, from having to go into foreclosure. They have a workout time of 5 years. The original proposal was 3. It's 0 interest, no cost to the veteran, and it's going to be just a very positive. Any veteran that's 3 months or more past due is now eligible for the program. If, again, it just got introduced in the House. So, but it got marked up. So we feel fairly confident on that. And next week will be when Rocky Andrews, who's our chief financial officer, and Valerie Saunders, who's our chief executive strategist, and myself are in DC, will be meeting with the Senate on the Senate side about, basically the same issue. And, I feel you're going to see probably the same outcome. They may already have something in place before we even get there. So, that was a definite positive that we hadn't expected to be involved in. And after that, both sides asked us to, send a letter to Chairman Bost about supporting the issue. And NAMB got that to him by Friday. So it's just going to make it easier for that to fly through the House. And then we'll see what happens on the Senate. And it's kind of interesting. That's flying through the House and the Senate's still working on it, whereas trigger leads passed the Senate unanimously last year, and we weren't able to get it across the goal line on the House side. So now we're looking at, okay, how are we going to do that? How's it going to, work out? What do we need to do? And so that's what I was doing last week, was meeting with basically staffers to talk to them about.
Well, they're the ones that do all the work, so.
Yeah, but they don't get the vote.
No.
So, I thought we had a pretty good response there. We also met with someone concerning both the Gold Star Families spouses bill, as well as the home affordable, basically their HECM loan, and to see if we could find who'd be interested in sponsoring that. So that's pretty much what I was working on. It was great to see that, Senator Haggerty and Reed, who've introduced, Senate Bill 1467, the Homebuyers Privacy Protection Act in the House, has already got, 38 co-sponsors on the bill. And we feel really good about that. I'm personally happy that the 38th one was our new senator from the great state of Ohio, Senator Bernie Moreno. So, so it was good. And, even though I was working the congressional side, the representative side, because the Senate really didn't have a problem, but it was good to see that, they're gaining support over there. On the House side, again, House HR 2808, same thing, meeting with as many people as possible. It's currently got, it's got 60 people on the House that have already passed. And of those 60 people, 21 of them are on the committee itself. So so the committee has 54 people. They've already got 21 of them agreeing to co-sponsor. So we've been kind of emphasizing, and next week, that's where our primary emphasis will be. We are going to talk to, like I said, we're going to talk to the Senate about this, but we're also talking to the Senate about the other two bills that I mentioned, that all concern veterans. And just now we've got an invite to meet with FHFA, Federal Housing Finance Agency, on Wednesday late afternoon to talk about housing issues, probably the letter that we had sent to support many of the issues that everyone's concerned with. That affordable housing and financing and Fannie and Freddie and all those. So we're going to take advantage of that while we're there too. But trigger leads is what we're concentrating on. That's our number one project. I did just happen to, next thing I knew is I was talking to people and I was in the middle of a discussion on flood insurance. I was like, yeah, we're good with that, and went into our little book that we put together, and here's what we feel about flood insurance, as well as disaster insurance. And actually that conversation was with a staffer from Congressman Lou from California. Well, yeah, floods aren't their issue out there, although, they do have a lot of mudslides.
Yeah.
But it's more disaster coverage. So that went really well too. So, but anyhow, that's my emphasis. NAMB has so many other different things it's working on, but my emphasis is looking at the 5 or 6 legislative issues we're working on, and the ones that have already been introduced. Okay, what can we do to help get those over the goal line? We don't want to be sitting here on December 30th or January 2nd to find out whether a bill passes or not. We want to do everything we can and get as many people in our association involved in the making calls. At the same time, we're meeting wherever, I met with Congressman Davidson, I'll be meeting with Congressman Flood, stopped in Matt Miller, who's my congressman. He didn't realize I actually knew his grandfather before he was even born. But, it was just, sometimes you're just learning about things when just purely by accident. You're talking about one thing, you go in to talk about one thing, and the next thing you're on an entirely different issue. But it still all relates to the housing industry. And, what's best for the veteran is going to be best for NAMB. What's best, how do we create more affordable housing? And still, so much is still up in the air because the administration is still developing policies, still putting people in place. So, but that's why we're concentrating not on the regulatory side, even though we'll be meeting with FHFA, but for the most part, we've been concentrating on, the legislative side. And that's our plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to hear because I know obviously that NAMB was kind of built on grassroots advocacy. And here we are 51 years later, still doing the same identical thing.
Yeah.
What can people do who want to help, but may not be able to participate at the level that you or I participate in? What can they do?
Well, the simplest thing is find out who your congressman is. And in some cases, for people, find out who their senators are and call them. Using Matt Miller as an example, I stopped in his DC office. He's got an office in Strongsville that's less than 6 miles from my house. Okay, now they're usually in their district offices on Mondays and Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not so important that you talk to them, what you get with the staffers. And whether you have time, whether it's to do a Zoom with them or, you're able to go in and meet with them personally. Yes, I don't expect every member from NAMB to be flying to DC to try to meet with their congressman when you can just go 6 miles away. Honestly, the only reason he was my congressman. So I'm like, okay, I'm adding him to the list of people I'm visiting. And his office just happened to be right across from the entrance from when you walked into the Canon office building. So it was like, okay, this was meant to be. In fact, he got 2 visits. He got one on Tuesday and he got one on Wednesday too. So just for the heck of it. But, so having people read out, they can go to our website and it's down in the advocacy section and you click a button and says, what's your zip code? And it'll give you your contact information for your congressman and your senators. So, we have a planned meeting with Bernie Moreno, who's, like I said, just signed up for the one bill. We're going to talk to him a little bit about the VAs, the issues with the VAs, the surviving spouses bill, but also, the HECM. So that's my plan. That's our plan right now. So, but we ask people just to, all the information they could possibly want to talk to their congressman or their senator is already on our website.
You don't have to be an expert. You just have to have the need to go to the website.
Right. And you never know who you're going to find out that, I always say, find out who knows who. I was quite surprised when he was a senator to find out that at the time, Governor Mike DeWine was a senator, and we were trying to get a meeting with him. And one of our members pointed out that his sister was Mike DeWine's chief of staff. Never came up in any of the conversations. I brought it up. Senator Mike DeWine happened to be in Cleveland for another event, and we got a meeting with him. Like, that's great. We were having a discussion once at the NAMB Ledge conference that we just had at the beginning of April, but years ago. And one of the guys was complaining that his daughter didn't like her job. And I'm like, well, what does she do? And it turned out she was on the staff for Vice President Gore. And I'm like, what? But he never thought to bring it up. And that led to a conversation with the president of the Wisconsin Association, whose daughter was the assistant press secretary for President Clinton. And it was like, we need to know who knows. Everybody, somebody somebody who might know somebody. But
a couple of years ago at our Ledge conference, I went to Senator Romney's office, not expecting to see Senator Romney, but come to find out somebody who was on their board, his daughter worked in his office over the summer, and they all knew him and knew his daughter. And so had the opportunity. We sat and talked to Senator Romney for a while, took photos. So yeah, you really don't know who people know. So yeah.
I mean, I find it funny that, the late George Voinovich, who was not only governor, then went on to become a senator. But I knew him when he was the county auditor in Cleveland. So, and then he just kind of, because one of my friend's father worked for him when he was
Okay.
just a county auditor. And the next thing you know, he's the lieutenant governor, and then he runs for Senate, and then he runs for governor, and away he goes. But the thing is, our members just have to, not everybody's going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, no one's going to commit right to you while you're on the phone. You have to just read our materials, make your pitch, send it to them. Our stuff you can all download. Hey, if you're not going to go meet with them in person, but you're talking to them on the phone, hey, can I send you this information in advance? So you have the opportunity to review it. And then when you're talking to them, you're like, okay, I'd like to talk to you about, trigger leads. And trigger leads is, sometimes people are like, okay, this is a gun issue. And, I put something on Facebook and it was blocked out because it used the word triggers. So, but going the Homebuyers Privacy Protection Act, once you get into use to saying that, you're like, okay, I want to talk about the Homebuyers Privacy Protection Act. Then they're like, okay, Facebook doesn't have a problem with you on that. Although they're thinking that's probably a boring topic. I don't know if anybody's going to want to read your post or anything. But, it's just stepping forward and saying, you know what, this is important. And we feel that this practice it's unethical.
Yeah.
It's, caused so many issues for people on how to, they're trying to buy a house or refinance a house, and then the harassment begins. And, particularly the older you are, the worse it is.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the texts start coming too. And
Well, and they don't know how to, I know like my parents, they don't know how to stop it. They don't know how to turn their notifications
No.
off. They don't know how to block a number. They don't know how to stop text messages from coming in.
Sure.
So, even though you think you've done everything, you probably haven't done everything.
Right.
Because they're just going to keep coming. I do want to mention too, so if people do take the time to reach out to their legislator and they want to get more information and maybe you don't feel like you have all of the tools necessary, you can email Jim directly at president@namb.org. You can email NAMB directly at namb@namb.org, and we'll forward the email to whatever party, or we'll take care of it ourselves and deal with it with Jim and our lobbyists. And just to kind of tie this up, can you talk just a little bit about PAC? Because the other thing people can do besides contacting their legislators is donate to PAC. And
Right.
we've been sending a lot of emails out. You've probably seen an email from NAMB's PAC chair, Mike DeSantis, a
Yeah.
video or a video from Jim. So maybe just kind of finish this off with PAC.
Yeah. NAMPAC has been around since the early 90s. And some people go, well, I don't want to donate to a PAC because, that's the buy votes. It doesn't buy votes. Right. What NAMPAC does is it support people that support us. Okay. That, feel about these issues the same way we do. You want those people to be retained in office or to get into office. So it has nothing to do with, oh, well, I write a check and now they're going to listen to me. No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes I've had people tell me, I feel a little more comfortable when I go to a fundraiser because I feel like, okay, NAMPAC wrote them a check. They're going to give me some FaceTime and, I feel a little more comfortable than just like, then I'm bothering them by just, making an appointment to go in the office, but that's what they do. But when you look at our PAC, we have so many different programs going. Our most popular is our $99, a month club. you put it on your American Express card, you completely forget about it. And, it's $99 a month. But we have some other plans, I think we just came out with the $10 a month plan.
Yeah.
And I use that as an example because Marvin Hudson, who is our co-chair this year and will be our GA chair last year, and was on the board this year, originally just started out by just donating $10 a month. Came out of his off his visa, and away he went. It was like $10 was no big deal. Same thing, I was like, well, you go to Starbucks, what's your latte cost? Does it cost more than $10?
I spend more than $10 in a day at Starbucks.
There you go. So, but I think, it's our way to, also people do look at, all right, how much money you're raising, how much money is available, and people are always going to be asking you for money. That's just part of the deal, and there's nothing you can do about it. But other political action committees are asking for $250 a month or $5,000, and we would love to have $5,000. But you know what? We're in the real world, and the way business is, not everybody can afford $5,000. So $99, $25, $10. That's great. We're not going to say no to someone who says, look, we have someone who's just an associate member that gave us $1,000 and then 2 months later just went on our website and gave us another 100 and hasn't asked any questions, but he's following everything we're doing. And he goes, basically, I call him, I go, hey, thank you for the donation. He goes, hey, I'm just supporting myself and what you guys are doing. And basically, that's just, besides going to the Hill, besides talking to people, yeah, any political action committee is out to benefit their association, their members. And that's all NAMPAC is. It's a way for you to, okay, you say you don't have time to go to DC, you don't have time to call your congressman or go 6 miles from your house. And I'm not saying, I'm using that as an example. If you live in Montana, they only have one congressman. So you might have to drive 800 miles. So you probably wouldn't do that. Although I don't know how big Montana is. It just looks big on the map. So I don't know. But you could probably afford $10 or $25 a month. And we'll make sure, that money, it's only used on the issues that affect our industry. We don't get into, well, where do they stand on this issue or that issue? Those aren't mortgage broker issues. We're only looking on issues that affect the National Association of Mortgage Brokers. And that's what NAMPAC is.
And all the money that is collected and deposited into NAMPAC is only used for donations to legislators based off of feedback from our lobbyists, from our PAC committee, from our members. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that too. We don't pay administrative expenses out of it. Whatever you donate is going to go to a legislator that's supporting your industry.
Yes, and NAMPAC's always been like that. We've never paid anyone who wasn't running for office or currently in office. We've never, spent a dime on anything except that. NAMB eats the cost of, maintaining the software and filing the reports. And, if we're going to send someone to an event, NAMB eats all those expenses. Or in most cases, the board member or whoever's attending on our behalf, they pay for it. But, we're just happy when we can get somebody to, attend an event on our behalf. So, but that's what the NAMPAC's all about.
Awesome.
Great thing to get involved in.
We'll probably maybe do another one of these, not next week, but the week after. We can report on what all of our meetings that we have next week. We're also attending the policy conference for CSBS, the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, which is also one of the associations that oversees in MLS.
Yep.
So I'm sure we'll have a lot of information from that
From
as
what
well.
I understand, talking to Rocky, it's the first time they've ever had it in Washington, DC. And this is besides the other two conferences, so maybe there's something they're gonna tell us.
Yeah, or maybe they realize we should probably be doing this.
Only time will tell.
Very true. Well, thank you very much. And we will see you again on another episode of Val's 5.
There
Thanks,
you go.
everybody.
Thank you.